All right, today we're talking about how to work with your spouse and not kill each other. I'm kind of joking there, but it's true. My guest today actually works with his wife, and they also have a digital consultancy. So we'll also talk about how to have a company that does digital consulting, especially in a time of major change in the digital consultancy. Digital economy. His name is Peter. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corkin here, and I'm the host of this show. And every week I feel so privileged because I get to talk to smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies, and check out the archives because we've got Netflix and Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, lots of great episodes for you to check out in the archives. And of course, this episode brought to you by Rise25, our company where we help B2B businesses to get clients referrals and strategic partnerships with done for you podcasts and content marketing. You can learn more about that and you can learn more about what we do in our podcast Copilot platform at rise25.com, or you can also email us at support@rise25.com. All right, my guest today is Peter Krzyzek. Hopefully I'm saying that even close to correctly. I kid you not, I tried about 4 or 5 different ways beforehand. He's the Chief Technology Officer at C Calofia, which is a company that he started with his wife in 2011. And Peter leads high-performance teams in optimizing their clients' digital and social consumer experience through business strategy and technology infrastructure. He's the co-author of the book Made to Sell, Creating Websites That Convert, and he's based out of Evanston, Illinois. And Peter, such a pleasure to have you here today. And I love to get to know my guests a little bit about what they were like when they were a kid, when they were growing up. And so we were going to start with you actually went and did caddying. And you learned a lot about entrepreneurship, learned a lot about what you liked and didn't like about having your own company, or about working for others. And tell us a little about what that was like being a caddy out in the sweltering fields. I've been there in the summer in Chicago, and man, the summers are no joke.
They're not, and thank you for having me. Caddying is not something I'd recommend for most people. It's grueling. And I don't want to say bad things about people who golf, but generally caddies are a tool and they're generally treated as such. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely some great and wonderful people who go to golf clubs, but by and large, you're not seen, not heard. You are a golf club carrier and that's it. And that made me absolutely hate this whole idea of a job, just over broke.
I think the book Never Eat Lunch Alone, is that what it's called? Am I butchering the name of it?
Something like that.
I think that's what it's called. I believe that the premise behind that book was, or the story that he tells, was about being a caddy at a golf club. And that he found that it gave him access to like this kind of wealthier society, and he kind of used it to network his way up, and it led to other opportunities. Did you find that there were opportunities that came from it, or do you find that you just kind of couldn't bridge that divide with the members there?
Back then, I was just a guy, to put it bluntly. I didn't think much about anything other than what am I going to eat for lunch? And not in the negative way. I'm just like, hey, maybe I'll get a burger. Maybe I'll get a steak or something. That's it. So I never thought too much about networking, but also that particular club, it's you don't talk to the golfers. I tried once or twice. Getting reprimanded is putting it nicely. Shortly after that, I realized that they just don't care.
Yeah.
So if you try to network, maybe if you've been there for a long time, they'll be like, oh, hey, finally great seeing you again. But beyond that,
Yeah.
totally young guy, they're not going to talk to us.
So you kind of realized that you didn't like this idea of being at a job. You wanted to control your own destiny, have your own company. And I guess a couple of years later, you had an experience where you're in high school. Someone brings in a box of Krispy Kreme donuts, and that led to a business idea?
It did. So we all love Krispy Kreme donuts. They're the devil's fruit. Can't get enough of it. And I realized, though, that at that time, that anytime somebody brought in Krispy Kreme, they were devoured within a few minutes. So I thought, well, hold on. What if I just start carrying these things around and sell them for a few bucks here and there? Lo and behold, I asked that teacher, hey, can you, when you're driving by and bring these donuts, can you get a few boxes for me? Like, yeah, sure, just pay me for the box. I'm like, easy peasy. And so box cost me at that time about 12-ish bucks, give or take. And I sold donuts for $2 or $3, sometimes five if I was coming at the end and they really wanted one.
Hmm.
Like a real good buck as a teen in high school, not doing any job thing, just carrying around a box of donuts. Pay
Hmm.
for pretty much every little fun thing I wanted in high school.
That's great. Did you ever get busted by the principal saying like, ah, you can't sell donuts here?
I was encouraged to not be so flamboyant with my sales. Beyond that,
Okay.
they didn't stop me.
Can't be like a carnival barker yelling, "Hey, get your donuts over here!" If you're more subtle about it, it was okay.
And I did bribe them with a whole box, so that helped.
Oh, you bribe you bribed the leadership of the school. Brilliant, brilliant. Drop off a box in the principal's office, and they probably will look the other way. That's a smart idea.
Indeed, I'm East European, I'm Polish. So in Polish culture, it's, how shall we say, expected that you will get something for doing something for somebody. You can
Mm,
call it a bribe
mm,
if you want, but that is just the way that world works. Here in America, generally bribes are seen as a horrible, evil thing. And I get that to a degree, especially with politicians. Though for us plebeians who are not politicians and oligarchs, you sometimes have to grease the wheels,
yeah,
open doors.
yeah.
And
It's
box of chocolates, wine, and flowers goes a significantly long way
right.
in Poland.
Right,
So
right. Yeah, that's an
that went well.
interesting it's an interesting way of framing it actually. So you figure out that you want to work for yourself one day. What's the next company that you start after the donuts and things like that?
So I realized that donuts can only take me so far. One, because I actually have to get donuts, which I couldn't do that every single day. And then I actually have to do something. I was a nerd and I didn't particularly like walking around with a box of donuts. They're also kind of big and bulky. So
Yeah.
I figured out what I know now is logistics are a pain in the butt. Didn't want to do that. So I realized that, hey, I'm a nerd. A lot of people need nerdy help. So I started with pretty much what every single nerd my age does. I started fixing computers.
Yep.
That thus then led to people saying, hey, you're a nerd, you know programming. I'm like, hmm, yes, of course I do. Like, can you make websites? I'm like, sure thing. And learned up how to make websites and things took off from there. Oh, I should say they didn't take off, but I started getting some momentum. Got a few people asking me to fix up their computers, make them better, do some like tech support. And that's when I learned I hate tech support. Will never, ever do that. If you have a printer problem, there's
You're
tech
not the
support
guy.
people for that. Not
So
for me.
you like the building of a website, but you don't like the idea of like the ongoing maintenance of being the person that they have to call or that has to solve the problem.
Funny enough, that is actually one of the services we currently do. Uh,
But you're not the one answering the phone, I imagine. Yeah.
nope. I have
Yeah.
a whole team for that.
Yeah.
And they're good at that. And clients seem to really appreciate that because it's not just Joe Schmo that they
Yeah.
don't know whoever or wherever they might be in the world. It's us. They know who our team is. They know them generally personally. They can contact us in many ways. And that's what I learned from that tech support stuff. It's tech support really, no matter what you try to do, people are going to see tech support as tech support. And I mean that in the most negative way. That's just how the world sees it. But websites, consulting, helping them figure things out, that is far more valuable than can you tighten a screw? Again, that's not to say anything bad about people
Right.
who are mechanics, plumbers, and all that, but tech support specifically is just always seen as the worst.
Well, I mean, I practiced law for a lot of years, and
Mm,
lawyers at their heart, sometimes you're helping people to create a business. Other times you're helping them with something that's gone wrong in existing business or a business partnership that went wrong or maybe a business that had a bad relationship go sour with a client. And those are very different things. It's very different to be helping someone to build something new that they're excited about, that they are asking you to help with versus helping someone with a problem and then they have to sink more money, time, energy in fixing that problem. So I'm catching that maybe that's kind of a distinction between the two different, types of services that you were describing.
that's a really good way to put it. because people who are in need, generally they are either in a panic mode or they're just not thinking straight for whatever reason. The medical world is a wonderful example of this. If you have an emergency, you don't care, you need to go get this thing fixed, and heaven forbid something goes awry. People hate doctors for the smallest little things. There's some good reasons, mostly for wrong reasons. And in tech, people, it's computers, they should just work.
Hmm.
They don't. Computers are literally going to do exactly what they're meant to do if there are no faults. But code is problematic. Look at Windows. It's full of holes, but so is Mac and Linux. They're just not used as much.
Hmm.
Code always has problems. Hardware always has problems. Put those two together, you're going to have things that just cause problems, and people thus then, what's the easiest thing to blame? The person trying to fix it. And I just
Mm.
couldn't take that kind of negative energy
Yeah.
from this kind of people. It's kind of also when I realized that it's not kind of people I want to associate with ever. So why should I take their money? And they don't really pay good money for that anyway.
Yeah.
So they don't pay well. They kind of always hate you no matter what you do, and they're always mean
Yeah.
like that. No, but
So
make building stuff
so you run
completely
that
different
business
world.
for a while, and then eventually you meet your wife and you decide to start a business together. Take me through that trajectory.
Sure. Around when I had my first company doing these small website things, fixing computers, that was late high school. I think I incorporated it shortly after I turned 18 because I didn't know if you could incorporate before 18 or not. Either way, incorporated that. That kind of just went on for a few years, not doing too much, living with my parents, so my expenses were nearly nil, but my profits were nearly 100%. Yes,
Yeah.
great stuff. But I didn't see too much forward beyond that. At that point, I still didn't know much about sales. I knew a little bit about how to talk to people about what the technology is doing. And at least with the people, my network, they saw me as an expert. So I'm like, okay, what can we do more? Eventually, I met through networking and all those fun things, met what ended up being my business partner on a second adventure. That sadly, most of us have probably experienced this. Partners don't always talk to each other well. We're not eye to eye on things. One person wants to go left, the other person wants to go right. You say pens, the other person says pencils.
Yeah.
You can't win sometimes.
Didn't work out.
Idea might be great. You might have the
Yeah.
cure for cancer, but if you can't bring it to market because people are clashing with each other all the time, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that second company ended up being a complete flop. But then eventually I did meet my wife. There's a whole fun story about that. But a long story short, she hates it when I put it this way, but she stalked me for a while. And then yeah, she hates funny word like that. So eventually we meet up, and at that point I found that she is a very creative person. She at that point was a junior graphic designer,
Uh,
and I thought, well, you did do design, and I can barely open a Photoshop without it blowing up on me.
hmm.
But I can code things. Why don't we put these two and two together? You can design websites. I code them.
Hmm.
So we started freelancing together a little bit. And that started going better and better overall. And after a little while, we're like, well, wait a minute. This stuff is kind of sort of working well. We really should do the whole company thing on it. One, we can write everything off on taxes. Uh, I realized that one the hard way. Uh, and we just started marketing everything together. She brought the brains, I brought the brawn.
And was the one plus one equal three? Like, what was that? How was it a lot better working together?
Oh man, lots of ups and downs and all arounds. I think now it's a one plus one equals 100 million.
Mm.
Back then it was more of we're trying to get to one, and she and I didn't have equal parts on anything, and we're kind of just running around like headless chickens. She talked to a few people, brought some designy things, and then said, Peter, take care of this client. I don't know anything about design. How am I supposed to
Mm.
build a relationship and run that client account? I couldn't. I'd bring in some techie thing, then pass it to her because
Mm.
it was either more creative oriented overall, but it was still tech. She didn't know what to do with that at all. It was trouble
Mm.
in the beginning. Slowly and surely, we started getting into the rhythm of things, getting more out there, bringing in more clients, and we started kind of settling in terms of process. But it wasn't easy. Um, as some people have learned, if you live and work in the same place and live and work with the same person,
Mm.
you, not in the best of ways, bring relationship problems from personal things into work and work problems
Vice versa.
back in.
Yeah.
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 And sometimes it gets ugly,
Yeah. Yeah.
but also
And
great.
and then does that seep into like the other members of the team? Like you go, mom and dad is fighting again.
Back then, yes, we have brought it to the team in not the best of ways. We've lashed out at the team before. We've lost productivity and clients because of disagreements, not, or worse yet, disagreements I think are fine because generally they can be talked through. But before you gain, I'm just going to call great self-awareness about who you are and what your relationship is, the worst part is not just disagreements, but it's not seeing eye to eye and nor being able to communicate those differences and come to some sort of agreement on what things are or aren't. And those cause the biggest problems. Should we hire this person? Should we not hire this person? Oh, this person's not doing well. We should fire them. Like, no, this person's great. I'm definitely going to keep them.
Mm.
Should we keep this client? Do this prod? Oh, a great one was we were working on a small little creative adventure. It was going to be a little mock-up of a graphic design for a website that we were helping on a little bit. We had completely different ideas on what the design should be towards the web stuff and how to put everything together. Did not, yeah, did not go well. But from there, we learned how to communicate a little bit better and how to figure out how to talk to the team. Nowadays, we try not to bring mom and dad issues to the team, and we've been mostly successful, but also we're honest with the team. If we're having problems, we tell the team, hey, mom and dad are fighting right now. It's not a you fault. We're going to resolve this.
Yeah.
Just know if either she or I are a bit snippy, you know why. And
And
honesty has been, what's the word? Freeing, really,
yeah.
about everything.
And you mentioned that your initial struggle was that you would bring in a tech client which wasn't a
Mhm.
fit for her. She'd bring in a creative client which wasn't a fit for you. How did you figure out who was a right fit for your combination of skill sets and what the company did?
I've been saying this a lot at this meeting, but we didn't for a long time figure this out. Slowly and surely, this is kind of one of those answers we fell into it, where we realized what seems to be working best is when we do have projects that we both are excited about, and it has a full website rebuild and a whole brand redo. That eventually helped us figure out that, okay, if this person's asking for just tech, she's never going to touch it. Peter, you're going to handle it fully by yourself because you know your tech. And if it's a graphic design thing, just graphic design, bringing up a brand, doing their social media, VC decks, and all those fun things, I'm never going to touch those. That was it back then. But if we had something to talk to in the middle, we did. We slowly and surely figured out how to communicate needs, requirements, who's going to do what in what process. But it was a honestly big learning thing. Lots of ups
Mm,
and downs, lots of disagreements on what order things go in, what quality controls do we have? Do we even want to do quality or are we going to focus on speed?
mm.
As we all know, it's that little triangle thing. Do you want something cheap, fast, or good? Pick two.
Right,
And
right.
we couldn't agree on that back then even.
Mm,
Those honestly through, funny enough, not through couples counseling, but through the next best thing, through couples counseling books. She read
mm,
a book on literally called, I believe, How to Talk to Him. And then
mm,
she gave me a book, the companion book, How to Talk to Her. I
mm,
don't remember if that those were the names, but essentially that's what they were.
mm,
Her book was a book written by a woman on one that has learned how to talk to men, especially their spouses, really, really
mm,
well, and how do men think? How do they overall approach topics, logic, discussions, disagreements? I, for example, as a East European man, for me, discussions and disagreements are things you just keep talking through, even if includes yelling. That's just how you do it.
mm,
For her, if yelling is involved, woo,
mm,
stop, it's done,
mm.
and completely shut down. So we had to get over a lot of those because communication, honesty is really just what's going to get you through this. And
Yeah.
that's what we bit by bit. And it wasn't one of those, we're going to have one discussion, everything fixed.
Mm.
It's still an ongoing discussion, how to make our SOPs and processes better. What are our ICPs very directly? We'll figure it
Yeah.
out. We'll get
How
there.
do, how do you keep business from getting into your personal life on the weekends and the evenings and stuff like that? How do you cut it off?
I love that question because we have a very simple answer. We don't.
So you
We don't.
you you don't. So you might be out like going for a hike on the weekend and be like, "Oh, by the way, did you finish that client thing that I asked you about?"
Exactly.
Mm,
This business is our baby. To
mm,
I don't know how else to put it. Our work is our life. Not to say that we don't have a life outside of work. We do.
mm,
But we realized the whole idea of work-life balance is impossible. Maybe for some people, it's a thing they can just put a line down the middle. For us, we tried and struggled so much to get that. We realized it's not going to work. So why fight something?
mm.
And we did talk about work things on private time anyway, but we're just like, no, we have to put these two apart, completely apart. It's like, you know what? For us, it seems more natural.
Hmm.
Just talk about the things that we're going to talk about. And she and I are passionate about what we do. So why not talk about it?
Yeah.
There are times to not talk about it, obviously, but for the most part, then actually we do talk about work on hikes. Last night we did, for those of you who know EOS, you have a level 10 meeting. We
Mm,
weren't able to do it early in the morning. So when we went to walk the dog after we picked up the kid from school, just did our level 10 meeting while walking.
mm,
Okay,
mm, mm.
sure.
Yeah.
So we lived through arguing about those things and just figured out ways that work for us. And again, I want to emphasize that is for us,
Yeah. It's
for what
what
we call
right.
work-life integration.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what works for different for each couple.
Yep.
Um, what was the project that shall not be named?
That one. So this came at a time when we thought we were growing. And at that time we were. But it was one of those, you jump off the deep end. In real life, if you jump off the deep end and you don't know how to swim, that's a very bad thing. You don't want to do that.
Mm,
And we did.
mm.
And we sank
So
because
it was a big project that came along and you kind of bit off more
it
than you
did
could chew. Okay.
by far. We were going to be creating this absolutely wonderful community for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, specifically in the women in tech world. We thought that, hey, building a community website would be easy. We just throw in a few plugins in, make the designs work. Oh, yeah, they want these custom features. Oh, they're easy. We can totally do that. And for anybody who's been in tech, that's not what you want to say
Hmm. Hmm.
because something that's easy logically, for example, logging in, that's especially in the enterprise world, that is a very, very complex process. It's not
Yeah.
just username and password. There's probably 50 different systems that make a login work securely.
Mm.
And on that project, we completely overestimated what the true scope was. We overestimated what our skills and abilities were for that timeline for the project. And it didn't help that that particular client always had changing requirements. One day it's they want the videos here, another day they want the videos that way. Oh,
Mm.
hey, you're doing the login. Why don't you make this other login thing work as well? Oh, now we need invites. Now we need a two-step process for this thing. And these things kept changing and evolving, and we were just getting frustrated because our rates back then were a lot lower than what we should have been charging either way.
Hmm.
But it's one of those budget ran out like 10 months ago. I'm not going to be doing this thing. And they're
Mm.
like, oh, how dare you? You signed the contract. You have to do this. Like,
Mm.
no, this is getting ridiculous. We're just done. And
Yeah.
so sadly, that ended on a very bad note. And I feel that while I still call it the project that shall not be named, it's a great thing to learn from. And it is one of those things that it's a bridge that should be burned because you're not going to come back from it. So might as well just put it behind you and learn from it.
Yeah, oftentimes, you can point to some new system or process or tool you put in place, and it came because of a bad relationship with a bad client that, didn't work out that well. Let's talk about a more positive one. You had a manufacturing firm, and maybe this is more indicative of the type of work that you do right now. Manufacturing firm with a million different products that you helped with total revamp of their
Mhm.
branding. And let's talk about that because I'm sure that happens a lot where they're like a manufacturing company or industrial company or something like that that hasn't done a good job of really communicating who they are to the world.
Manufacturing, production factories, it's not seen as a pretty nor glamorous world. It's here's our product list. Are you going to buy it or not? Here are our
Yeah.
prices.
Yeah.
What more do you do?
Yeah.
And that's the general way a lot of people approach that, including that particular business. So they were getting really frustrated with it because not only was their website pretty much useless, they used it as something they have kind of just on the side. And once in a while, they might refer a client to their just to download one of their fact sheet PDFs, and that's it. It
Yeah.
wasn't used in their sales process, wasn't used in their branding. And they were getting frustrated because their salespeople had to do so much extra work just to explain
Mm.
the things they already know. And it's one of those could have been an email type situations.
Mm.
They're like, right, you know what? We're done. It doesn't represent who we are. It's at that time 2023. No, just we have to redo the whole thing. So we got on that project and we revamped everything. Brand new colors that are indicative of their personalities, their strong, fierce personalities, quality of the communications, teams, and relationships they build. And interestingly enough, the funniest part I found is a little while earlier, I mentioned that do we want to do quality? They were very, very specific on who they are. They're not the bottom tier, but they're not the top tier either. They know very well who they are. They're
Mm.
top mid tier, and
Mm-hmm.
they're never going to change. Like, don't you want
Mm.
to be better? They're like, no,
Mm.
this is who we are.
Mm.
Branding we have doesn't represent them. Like, and that's what we made it towards.
Mm.
Exactly who they are. They look great for who they are and how they market themselves. Now they have marketing funnels that actually are cohesive. There's a good path to any of the content that's clear, concise, actually makes sense. And their salespeople can say, hey, you're interested in product XYZ. Hey, here's how to find it. Just click here. It's right there. You want the fact sheet? Oh, yeah, that's a little bit down below if you want some technical things. But hey, here's how the product looks like. Here's how you can use it. Here's everything else you might ever need. You want to talk to us? We can help build out the pro forma invoice and go from there. But beyond that, everything's for you now. And since then, their website has been growing with more and more use, doing better on the search engines, helping them with their sales marketing funnels, and soon to be helping them search through all million plus SKUs they have.
God, that sounds like a massive project alone right there.
The branding was massive in and of itself because we also did, funny enough, underestimate how many pages of content they had. They end up having close to, I think, 400 pages of pure content.
Wow.
A lot of text, which now is
Mm-hmm.
not just pure text. It actually is readable rather than novels and novels of technical documentation. So that was a fun one. And now the upcoming product finder that we have for them is something that a lot of manufacturers have product finders, but they're quirky in their own weird ways, or they're overly animated. And good luck finding not only the information you're looking for, but how does it look like? And now I want to build my invoice from this thing. Click, off we go. They made this thing also not for consumers. Joe Schmoes, you and I? No. Yeah, sure, we can go on there and search, but it was made specifically for their clients, which are not the people getting the homes or buildings or whatever. It's the general contractors, it's the engineers. So the search is made specifically for them to make finding everything quicker. Oh, I did this previous sale with you guys. I want the exact same thing again. Oh, yeah, here you go. It's in your profile right there. You can log in, just click buy again, and off we go.
We people talk about the Amazonification of the buying experience. We're all kind of used to buying a product from Amazon and having relevant searches or being able to find previous products that we purchased. And it's like, we're holding other companies to that standard. We kind of expect that that's going to be at the fingertips and available to us.
And it does make sense though. Love or hate Amazon and ignore the politics and weird things that's going on with Amazon overall. They know search because
Hmm.
Amazon is not an e-commerce retailer company. They are a technology and data company. More
Hmm.
so, they're an advertising company. They have Amazon AWS to support all their search and advertising. And then they have the e-commerce store, which is how they started, to really fund a whole bunch of the consumer stuff and build the brand up. AWS wouldn't exist without the storefront, and their advertising wouldn't exist without either. So they know data. And why don't we learn from the best? Because yes, people do expect to be able to find information quickly, easily, the relevant things, and store their data in a reasonable, mostly private-ish way. And I think that just makes logical sense for most
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
If Netflix didn't save any of your insights or profiles or your views,
They'd
be
be
like,
just generic recommendations. Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
We kind of grown to appreciate that kind of personalization.
Mhm.
I think we will even more in the years ahead.
Yep.
Okay, at the risk of asking a question that could open up an answer that I'm sure could be hours long, I was thinking about you have like a manufacturing company come to you and they're saying like, our website doesn't represent us. It's not really reflective of our brand.
Mhm.
Where do you even start with that conversation? What is your process like to help a company figure out how to express their brand when they've done such a poor job of it? It just seems like that's such an overwhelming task.
It can be as it grows and scales, though we always start with, I think it ends up being four very simple questions. What do you like and why? What do you like and why, of course, but what do you not like about what do you
Your
like?
About your current brand or your current business?
Anything about
Anything.
your
Okay.
current brand, about things you see out there in the world.
Mm,
If you're an e-commerce retailer, you like Amazon. Great. Why do you like Amazon's things? Great. Now, what do you not like about Amazon? Because we know you like them already and you want to be like them, but what do you not like about them?
mm,
And now the flip side of that, what do you specifically not like? What do you definitely never want to be towards, like, or have? And why? Now, my favorite one, about the thing you don't like. What do you like about them? What can we
mm,
learn from them? What can we use from the thing you don't like? And we start there because that opens up so many questions.
mm,
And that starts leading us on the path of, all right, we talked about these things that you want to go towards and or go away from. Great. Now, what are your measurables that you're going towards? Okay, you're going to try to hit this revenue goal, the conversion rate improvements, more SEO or whatever. And all right, well, then how do we take this and align it with those? Well, this won't help. So here's the priority we'll focus on. Excuse me. And from there, we take it literally one step at a time. Sometimes going forward, sometimes we start with the end goal and go backwards. But for us, it ends up being just a literal process of asking questions.
mm.
Because then
Um,
we ask those four questions and then more questions. And we try to keep them open-ended, kind of like what you had here. But just funny enough, the best way is just to take somebody out to coffee and just
mm,
have them start talking. There's
mm.
so much you can learn about what they're going for, what they like, don't like, need, who they fit into. Because a brand isn't just, let's make us look good. And my wife would crucify me for saying this thing, but looks on a website don't really matter. It could be the prettiest thing, but if it's not relevant or useful or interesting or hard to get through, who cares about pretty? I've
Yeah,
seen
true.
horrible, ugly websites that convert crazy well.
Mm,
And we've all
mm,
seen those long form sales letters. They're
mm-hmm,
ugly, but
mm-hmm.
my God, do they convert?
Yeah,
So what's
yeah.
more important, conversions and money or looking pretty?
I'm
Pretty easy.
mindful of the clock. We're almost out of time here. So,
All right.
two final questions.
Yeah.
First is for a digital consultancy, I have to ask you because we're
Mhm.
recording this in the end of 2024 about AI and
Mhm.
how that's affecting the world of the digital economy.
I found that for the most part, it doesn't. Things will change. The only constant in life is change,
Mm,
really. AI is here to stay, whether you want to or not. Some people will be affected by it negatively. Generally, that ends up being the lowest tier type of knowledge, education, or whatever. Though, for the rest of us, and the way I choose to see AI, it's an augmentation tool. Think
mm,
cybernetics and sci-fi and all those fun things. You don't replace the human, you augment them.
mm,
And when AI is used to augment your processes, augment your deliverables, augment and speed up maybe your overall simplified discovery phases, it can help so much speed things up, offer more value, reduce emotional weight on things. And for a lot of people, even including myself, we use that as a therapist. Just
mm.
bounce ideas off of it, see where it takes you. It might just jog some ideas and get the brain juices flowing.
That's great. All right. My last question, my gratitude question. So I'm a big fan of expressing gratitude or giving our guests the opportunity to express gratitude, especially for peers or contemporaries or mentors who help them along the way in their journey. Who would you want to shout out and recognize?
I have three. three in mind. Mark, who brought me into EOA, he was somebody I connected through.
EOA is the EO Accelerator program, which you and I both participated in. Great program,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's truly awesome. He got me into that, set me on the right path, connected with some phenomenal people, and that whole group is just wow, in the
Mm.
best possible way. Super loving, super caring, and extremely educational. Love it. Next is Tim Paget, also from EO. He's retired now. I call him the loving grandpa who will punch you in the gut to set you straight. He knows so much, but he will tell it like it is in a loving way. And you will definitely understand everything after he's done with you, and you will love him for it. And the third is a business buddy. He's down in Florida. He's had a similar-ish agency to me, but he's way ahead of where I am in terms of business size, and that's fine. And he is, I don't know how somebody could be that nice, honestly. Anytime I have a problem, he's like, yeah, here's the answer. Here's some help. Here's where you can learn about this. Oh, you're struggling with this thing? Here's some ideas, help, videos. Even let me sit down with you and guide you through this thing. Here's how you can do these things. And he's been my moral support and rock for a lot of things, getting me through a lot of hard times and helping me really just become who I am today.
Peter,
So
this has been
thanks
great.
to
Where
Chris
can
in Florida.
Great, thank you, Peter. Where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, learn more about what you guys do?
They can go to sacalafia.com, which I know a lot of people will have trouble spelling. They'll probably have it somewhere in their show notes. You'll find me on LinkedIn, and those are probably the two best ways.
And by the way, I didn't get to it earlier, but your wife made up this name when she was bored in biology class, and so she just this total made up name.
Yes, Sakafia is a completely made up name. Back then, she thought it sounded like one of those butterfly names, so she made it up. But to her, it was pretty. And she was a designer, so pretty things.
Mm.
And now we use it to say that we create extraordinary, it's a difficult word, extraordinary experiences that have a positive impact in the world.
And it became her username, and then it's kind of followed her through life. That's great.
Yep.
I love
Absolutely.
it. Peter, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.